How would you like a 15% discount to my daily email, the stack of stuff, the show notes, discounts to the conference, all of that? All you need to do is text the word show to 33777. You'll get the annual subscription with a 15% discount to my daily email. You'll get the stack of stuff, the links to the show notes, discounts to the conference, and so much more. All you have to do is text the word show, SHOW, to 33777. Text show to 33777.
Welcome to the Eric Erickson Show podcast, Hour 3.
Greetings, conversationalists. Welcome. It is Eric Erickson here across America. The phone number is 877-973-7425. For those of you in the Atlanta area, my buddy Chris just sent me a note. Good news, housing prices are dropping in the metro Atlanta area. Tyler Perry just sold his estate for $2.45 million. It had been listed for $3.9 million. It's the old one, not the new one he's building. Okay. Thanks again. If you hadn't heard, my wife's scans were good. I appreciate it. I've got her sitting at a hotel while I do my show. We'll grab her after the show and head back home. I want to spend some time here on Veterans Day. And I want to thank those of you who served. I want to thank you. One of the funniest stories I have heard lately is a friend of mine who was getting thanked profusely on Memorial Day for his service. And he tried to explain, no, that's Veterans Day. And this is Memorial. No. Memorial Day is for when you die serving your country. I didn't die, so Veterans Day. That'll be November. It's November 11th. It is November 11th because they needed a way to stop the guns. And they decided to give advance notice. And everybody was on notice. The Germans, the Austro-Hungarian Empire was cracking up, falling apart, dividing. We would get Germany out of the Austro-Hungarian Empire. And they sent out notice, November 11th at 11 a.m. So on the 11th hour of the 11th day of the 11th month of 1918, the guns of August fell silent. The war had started in August, really, July 28th, 1914, but really August, that's when it got started. The Allied powers and the Central Powers slaughtered hundreds of thousands. The war spread across Europe, the Middle East, parts of Africa, Asia, into the Pacific. The United States finally entered and helped resolve it on the side of the Allied powers, cementing an alliance with Great Britain that had not very much been an alliance before then. The Treaty of Versailles was not signed until June 28th, 1919. I watched Downton Abbey when it was out. I wasn't a huge fan, but I watched it. It wasn't a bad show. It just turned way too soap opera-ish. But it wasn't a bad show. One of the things it captured was the upheaval after World War I. What had been could no longer be in Europe. The aristocracy receded to the entrepreneur. The women of Europe entered the workforce en masse. They couldn't stay home anymore. All their husbands and sons were dead on battlefields. Towns in England lost all their men, many of their boys. What was could no longer be. And that was World War I. Across Europe today, now it's evening there now. Earlier today, the King and Queen of the United Kingdom of Great Britain and Northern Ireland and all the Commonwealth nations laid a wreath. The Brits, the Aussies, the Kiwis, the Canadians, they all wore poppies. That's World War I is not something we in this country have ever really paid attention to. World War II was our big one. World War II was the one we entered it en masse. It had been just the Europeans fighting each other, Hitler barnstorming across Europe. We entered World War II, and we lost lots and lots of young men in World War II. We didn't really lose a lot of young men in World War I. World War II was transformative to the world and put us in charge of the world. Just for comparison, in Vietnam, we lost 58,000. In World War I, we only lost 116,516. That's 116,516 too much, but 405,399 Americans died in World War II. So World War I was 116,000. World War II was 405,000. And if you really want perspective there, the Revolutionary War was 25,000 Americans died. Think about that. 25,000 Americans in the military died in the Revolutionary War. 405,399 died in World War II. In the Gulf War, fought in 1990, 258 Americans died. That's amazing. The war on terror, the one that it was such a drain on American resources and we recall so many people dying. 7,091 American soldiers died from 2001 to now. 7,091. A lot were injured. A lot were injured in IEDs. A lot of lives were changed. You add up all of the wars in which Americans died. The Gulf War, the Spanish-American War, the War on Terror, the Mexican-American War, the War of 1812, the Revolutionary War, the Korean War, the Vietnam War, World War I, World War II. Add them all up, add all the soldiers together who died. The sailors, the soldiers, the Marines, the airmen who died. They still don't equal the amount who died in the Civil War. Europe today has Remembrance Day because so many Europeans died in World War I. You can still see the trenches. Not the World War II trenches. You can see the World War I trenches. And in fact, some of the World War II trenches were World War I trenches. Whole towns were lost. Whole families were wiped out. It's a massive deal to Europe. And the world set Remembrance Day for November 11th because that's when peace happened. That's when the guns fell silent. The 11th hour of the 11th day of the 11th month, and the President of the United States here lays a wreath. At 11 o'clock in the morning on November 11th, the President of the United States places a wreath on the tomb of the unknown soldier. He did it today. But we don't have Remembrance Day today because our Remembrance Day is our Memorial Day, the last Monday in May, because if you add up all of the dead of all the wars ever fought by Americans, they still amount to less than died in the American Civil War, 620,000. And by the way, there's new academic scholarly data that more and more people believe might be accurate that actually pushes it above 700,000 lost during the Civil War. If it is 620,000 lost, then during Barack Obama's presidency, we actually tied the number of dead of the Civil War to all the other wars combined. Still, all the other wars combined, to reach the number dead in the Civil War, you have to get to Barack Obama's administration. And by the way, with the growing body of academic research that suggests that the Civil War killed more than 700,000 Americans, we haven't even matched it with all other wars combined. That's why we don't remember the dead today. We remember the veterans because the Civil War was so destructive. We already had a day set aside. 405,399 Americans died in World War II at a time the American population was expansive. We had 48 states in the Union. We had a massive population, 405,399 members of the military died. And that was still less than the Civil War at a time the nation was smaller, both in terms of population and landmass. That's absurd. And there are those who right now, at this moment, on the left and the right, they want another civil war. They say they want a national divorce. They want a breakup. A breakup is not going to come peacefully. And what I have found is the more online you are, the more hyper online you are, the more hyper partisan you are, the more you look at the other side of the aisle and say they're evil as opposed to they're my opponents, you're more likely to be willing to have a civil war. And I've also found that the more you look on the other side and you say they're evil, the less of them you know. You live an isolated existence when you find the other side evil. Oh, well, you say, well, but abortion, they're the party of abortion. They're the party of sterilizing children. That's evil. I would agree. It's a sin. I would agree. But what about the sins on your own side? You know, they look at you on our side and say, you're tearing families apart. You're putting children in camps. You're tearing them apart. Their families have fled violence. What about the refugees? And you and I can be dismissive and say, no, that's not as bad. But you should understand that they look at us the same way we look at them in those cases. And here's why I try to avoid saying they're evil, though they're sinners, because we're sinners too. And there are a lot of people who have decided, well, their sins are so much greater than my own. They're the evil ones. I can't coexist with them anymore. There are a lot of Democrats. Gavin Newsom, he doesn't want to coexist with people in Texas or Georgia. He wants to impose California values on them. We used to, as a nation, live and let live, and now we do not. We don't celebrate each other. We don't treat each other as worth celebrating. We don't do this if we live too much online. Those of you who are listening to me right now who you're not obsessed on social media, you're not on Facebook all the time, you're not on Twitter all the time, the data suggests that you view your fellow Americans in a better light than the people who are online all the time. And there's something to be said for when you stay online constantly, you are more likely to hate the other side. When you are online with your tribe so much, you're less likely to view the other side as legitimate. And I've got a problem with that because 620,000 Americans were killed in the Civil War. And by the way, that's the military. That's not wounded. That's just dead. When you include the wounded in the Civil War, it tops 1 million people. And I don't want to go through that as a nation. And so I would say we have to accommodate each other. We have to find ways to respect each other's differences, and we have to realize that we don't fight with bullets, we fight with ballots in this country, and there's no such thing as a permanent majority. Things change. In a nation of 340 million people, growing to 350 million people over time, things change. There's no permanent coalition. So I would tell you, stop looking on people you disagree with as your enemy. There certainly are people out there who are evil. There certainly are people out there who believe things that I abhor. But I got to share the country with them, so there's got to be some level of civic goodwill, even as we disagree. We got to make our arguments at each other, and to others, and not be censoring each other, so the best ideas win. And then we do it all over again every 2 years in a never-ending cycle of elections. And we do it to honor the blood shed on battlefields, not in Europe, but here. So much blood shed here that when Europeans slaughtered each other on the battlefields of World War I, we couldn't join them in a Remembrance Day because we already had to have one because of the number of Americans who killed other Americans in a war between states, not between countries. And we should thank the veterans today who lived to tell the tale of war, and we should hear them and recognize probably not something we want to bring back to this land. And in so doing, recognize that, you know what? We're going to share this country together, and it's going to be okay. Howdy, howdy. It is Eric Erickson here across the nation. 877-973-7425 is the phone number. Don't forget, text donate to 33777, and you can help us raise money to feed people this Thanksgiving season, which is really actually something that is very necessary. There are a lot of people out there who need the help, and there are a lot of people, frankly, out there who don't want to seek the help, and they're just not comfortable. They feel like they're begging, and I just encourage those people. We're doing what we can to provide funds. This radio show, 638 of you have made a donation so far. And I'm hoping in the last couple of years we've hit thousands of people. We've only been at this for about 24 hours now. I hope you'll consider texting the word donate to 33777 and follow the link. You can also go to ericthanksgiving.com, ERICK, Thanksgiving.com. It's not Eric's Thanksgiving, it's just Eric, ERICK, Thanksgiving.com. That'll send you to the website. As we help feed families, we have partnered across the nation in all of our areas of listenership with Hungry for a Day to make sure that you can contribute in your community and that you will be serving local people in your community and people will be able to get a Thanksgiving meal. So thank you for your help. Text donate to 33777. Now, also consider going to AFPvolunteer.com today and sign up for Americans for Prosperity. If you want to be in the know and an active member of the conservative community nationwide, Americans for Prosperity would love to have you. You go to AFPvolunteer.com and you can sign up and just stay informed of local public policies around the country. And if you want to do more than that, if you want to really get engaged, you go to AFPvolunteer.com and you can learn how to go to your county commission or your local school board or your state legislature or even call members of Congress and how to talk to them about issues and persuade them that they should take your side. Americans for Prosperity has summoned volunteers around the country and helped put pressure to pass the president's tax cuts at the state level, school choice, business reform, new laws to regulate the bureaucracy and rein in their power. You can become a powerful member of the conservative movement or just the most informed person in your circle of friends. And all you do is go to AFPvolunteer.com, AFPvolunteer.com. Sign up with Americans for Prosperity. They're active in every state. They've got chapters in every state. They'd love to have you on board at AFPvolunteer.com. My friends, hello. It is Eric Erickson here. I'm glad to have you with me. It looks like for those of you out in Dodge City, Kansas, the New York Times, it's notable, the New York Times, the top story right now on their website, Kansas redistricting was on the fast track, then some Republicans said no. The top Republicans in Kansas were ready to join President Trump's redistricting push and redraw the state's political map to deliver another seat in Congress to Republicans. Democrats feared that a special session to pass new district lines was inevitable. And then something surprising happened. Some Republicans refused. The pushback on the plains leaves in place, at least for now, the one Democratic-leading congressional district in Kansas. It comes as a small but rising number of lawmakers across the country, Republicans and Democrats, have balked at joining the drive to carve up congressional district to boost their side's odds in midterm elections. The national flurry of remapping set off this summer when Texas Republicans drew a new one at the president's behest happened quickly in several states, but growing resistance from state lawmakers for reasons both practical and philosophical has put a chill on the effort. When the Republican governor of Indiana called a special session for redistricting last month, the Senate Republicans said the votes weren't there. Maryland Democratic leaders are divided. In Kansas, where top Republicans hoped to meet with a new map last Friday, House leaders failed to get enough support. The depth and breadth of Republican skepticism, both from conservatives and moderates, rural areas, suburban areas, and city areas, suggests redistricting in Kansas might be dead, and it's not alone. Y'all, serious subject matter here. Many of you think the Republicans need to redraw everywhere, and I have largely been one of them too, I acknowledge. But if you saw what happened in Virginia, a lot of seats that should technically be Republican seats became Democratic seats. And if the election goes badly next year, some of those R+6 seats in some states will become swing Democratic seats, where the Democrats win by 0.5% to 1%. It may not be smart for the GOP to go down the road they're going down with the redistricting efforts now, given what we saw on Tuesday night. The polling actually was not that good in certain parts. And some polls were actually pretty good, by the way. New York Times, Siena, very good again. Trafalgar polling, very bad again. Atlas Intel polling, very bad again, I think. You got some clunkers in there. Pay attention to the good polls. And if you pay attention to the good polls that actually worked, what you see is that for next year, the Republicans are not sitting well right now. So if you do carve up these districts, let's just take Kansas. Got a lot of new listeners in Dodge City, Kansas. God bless you all. I want to come have steak with you. I hear there's massive beef processing outside of Dodge City, and I want to come have steak. And I promise I won't eat it well done with ketchup. I'll even go medium with just salt and pepper. I promise. I just want to come see you. But let's divide up Kansas. Let's take that congressional district. The problem is that around that congressional district are Republican districts that would be diluted in strength. And even in Kansas, remember, Kansas has a Democratic governor. You could see a bleed off in some of those Republican districts where suddenly you've got not good seats for the GOP. Think about Jim Ryan. Jim Ryan, great Republican congressman, a great athlete, an Olympian. I'm friends with his sons. He was a congressman from Kansas, and his district swung to the Democrats in a bad election year. You start diluting Republican strength in their congressional seats, and suddenly you've got some seats that on paper look very Republican, but in reality become Democrat. I would be careful if I were you, Republicans. What I would tell the Republicans instead is you gotta fix the problems. Fix the problems, please. And fix the economy. This is from the Washington Post. The fury at 8 Democratic-aligned senators who voted with, notice, Democratic-aligned senators are not Democratic-aligned, they're Democrat senators. The fury at 8 Democrat-aligned senators who voted with the Republicans to end the longest-ever government shutdown highlights the dramatic shift in the Democratic Party less than a year into President Donald Trump's second term. As voters and lawmakers argue the party needs to adopt more ruthless tactics to counter the president and claw its way back to power. The reaction to the 2 votes on Sunday and Monday, which provide a pathway for the government to reopen after more than 40 days, was fierce. Ro Khanna of California called for Senate Minority Leader Chuck Schumer to be replaced, suggesting he was an ineffective leader even though Schumer opposed the government funding measure. House Minority Leader Hakeem Jeffries blasted the 8 senators and said House Democrats would not support a government funding bill that did not include the health care measures the party had demanded. Democratic advocacy groups, politically vulnerable lawmakers, potential 2028 presidential candidates, and voters all followed suit, blasting those in their party they say are caving. The desire for Democrats to hold firm despite the pain inflicted by the shutdown was the latest example of a party that has decided it must adopt an altogether different playbook given Trump's willingness to resort to unprecedented measures to consolidate and maintain power. Rather than try to uphold norms as Trump shatters them, they've insisted instead they got to fight Trump with tactics they previously disdained and excoriate those who've stood in their way. The Democrats are working themselves into frenzy. They've already got them out there firing actual bullets at the right. They're working themselves into a frenzy, convinced that the Republicans are shattering norms, and they themselves never shattered norms. It wasn't norm shattering when Barack Obama went after the nuns or the pro-lifers or had the IRS target conservatives. No, none of that was earth-shatteringly defiant of the norms. No. Only the Republicans shatter norms. But that's why the GOP needs to be careful. You know, there's some data. Where is this? Yes. Greg Price on Twitter highlighted this. In the new Atlanta Journal-Constitution poll down in Georgia, where your host is their new conservative columnist, right as they're about to get rid of a print newspaper, nonetheless, Democrats in Georgia say that their single most important issue is standing up to Donald Trump and MAGA Republicans. More than the economy, more than the cost of living, more than taxes, more than jobs, more than immigration, more than crime, more than anything else, the number one job, according to Democratic voters, is standing up to Donald Trump. Now, here's the significance of that and the problem. It is very typical in off-year elections, midterm elections, that the party out of power is more fired up. And the Democrats we saw in this off-year election, they're very fired up. So if you redistrict and you take an R plus 12 district down to an R plus 5 or 6 district, you could be making it a D plus 0.5 to D plus 1 district. Democrats are mobilized. Now, here's the hope that the Republicans have from the shutdown, that they have been so divisive, that they have been so focused on dividing the Democrats, that that'll overcome the divisiveness, that will allow the GOP to mitigate the 2026 damage. Because let's be honest here, there are going to be a number of Democrats, you will note in the United States Senate, none of the people who were involved in breaking the shutdown blockade on the Democratic side are on the ballot in 2026. 2 of them aren't running again. The rest of them are put off to 28 and 2030. I mean, literally, a couple of them are involved, aren't up for re-election until the year 2030. Do you really believe anyone in 2030 is going to care about the 2025 shutdown? No. 5 years from now? No. But the anger is going to be taken out on perceived moderate Democrats. And if you take the anger out on those perceived moderate Democrats and you beat them in primaries with hard left socialists like Mamdani, you got a problem. Years ago, 2010, Jim DeMint started the Senate Conservatives Fund. I was all in and still am on the Senate Conservatives Fund. Great organization. Jim DeMint started. My buddy Matt Hoskins has been just a brilliant strategist trying to get more conservatives elected to the United States Senate. There were a couple of races, though, where the Senate Conservatives Fund was blamed but did not get involved. Christine O'Donnell in Delaware. Remember the witch, I am a witch. She challenged Mike Castle. She beat him in a Republican primary, and then she lost. She was too hard right. She was not a good candidate. Jim DeMint got blamed for supporting her, and he never did. There were a number of those candidates around the country who were too far right, and they cost Republicans at a time the GOP should have won the Senate and expanded its margins. They lost. Harry Reid was able to win re-election against a Republican, and everyone largely argued had his opponent been someone else, Harry Reid would have lost. But the conservatives rallied and pushed too far right in certain parts of the country where going that far right was actually unhelpful. And the result was Democrats mitigated the damage. Republicans now have the opportunity to mitigate their damage. You push the Democrats too far left. You push the Democrats too far left, and you see what voters will reject. Now, not all of them can be pushed so far. In New Mexico, maybe, and John Ossoff in Georgia, he's so scared of progressives primarying him, he backed the government shutdown, and that could come back to bite him. Jeanne Shaheen, though, is up for re-election in New Hampshire, and she's not running again. You could get the Democrats to go so hard left that John Sununu, now the Republican candidate, gets elected. Maybe in Michigan, Gary Peters. He could be primaried, pushed out the door, have somebody challenge him or decide not to run again. Mark Warner in Virginia, that one's an outlier, but possible. You've got senators this year up for re-election on the Democratic side. Cory Booker in New Jersey, Chris Coons in Delaware, Dick Durbin in Illinois, who's not going to run again, John Hickenlooper in Colorado, Ben Ray Lujan in New Mexico, Ed Markey in Massachusetts, who's not going to run again, Jeff Merkley in Oregon, John Ossoff in Georgia, Gary Peters in Michigan, Jack Reed in Rhode Island, Jeanne Shaheen in New Hampshire, Tina Smith in Minnesota, Mark Warner in Virginia. There aren't a lot of pickup opportunities there for the GOP. However, John Ossoff is certainly one. Gary Peters in Michigan is another. And if the Democrats go too far hard left in those races in particular, they could really cost the GOP, cost the Democrats the potential to take back the Senate. So what the Republicans did by defying the Democrats, by refusing to reopen the government, it was the only way that it could happen. It's the only way. The Democrats are going to turn on themselves. Gary Peters, I just got to note, he's decided to step aside. Abdul El Sayed, who is one of the ranking Democratic candidates to replace him, is declining to say whether or not he believes Israel has a right to exist. I mean, good luck to the Democrats on this sort of stuff. Good luck to you. The data suggests the Democrats are moving further and further and further to the left, and the data suggests the voters don't want them to. They have fallen into a trap the Republicans designed, and they genuinely could push themselves so far left that the voters react in states like Michigan, even in states like New Mexico, states like Georgia, responding to John Ossoff, who sided with progressives and shut down the government. This could be a replay on the Democratic side of what Republicans went through in 2010 if the Democrats aren't careful, and it looks like they are not going to be careful. Welcome back. It is Eric Erickson here. There's new polling out from Gallup on the legalization of marijuana. 85% of Democrats support it, 66% of independents support it, 40% of Republicans support it. Every single group that supports it has fallen. Democrats the least, but they've still fallen. Independents were up over 70%. They're now at 66%. Republican support has gone from 55% to 40%. I have a theory why. It stinks. Upper income white people, they go get their edibles and they sit on their couch at night or they vegetate somewhere. But you got a lot of people who smoke like actual weed, and it stinks, and they do it in their cars. And because it stinks so much, more and more people are aware of how many people are driving high. You're starting to see all the billboards now, at least I am in my area, that say don't drive high and things like that. We even have, if you listen to the live stream, I don't know if it comes through, maybe you hear an ad, blessedly hear an ad instead of the PSAs. There's a PSA we hear sometimes of guy who is driving high and, oh, don't drive high. I hear the music when I'm driving. Yeah, but you don't see the people you're about to run over is basically the gist of it. More and more people are smoking weed while they drive. It happened to me yesterday. Where was I yesterday? I can't remember now. But I was driving somewhere and person in front of me, like I had to turn on my air circulator of the car. It stunk so bad. And I think that's what it is you go to Las Vegas now, everywhere smells like weed. I love to go to Las Vegas. I'm not a big gambler. I'll play craps, but I go play golf. I shoot machine guns. I'm fat. I love to eat. They've got great restaurants in Las Vegas. The whole place stinks like weed now. You can't just go get the edible. You gotta smoke a joint and blow it in people's face. It's just gross. It's gross. And so people's support for it is declining. And also, there's an overwhelming body of research now that people who regularly smoke weed under 25 years old have a massive, massive risk of schizophrenia later in life. Massive risk. I actually know a couple, their son has schizophrenia, and they attribute it to the weed habit he developed while he was in college, was smoking massive amounts of weed in high school behind their back and got to college, just turned total pothead, failed out of college. He's got schizophrenia. And they absolutely attribute it to his drug usage. There's a counter-revolution coming, and a lot of it just has to do with, instead of buying edibles and sitting on their couch and playing video games, people are driving and smoking marijuana, and the rest of us are very aware of it now. If you're pro-weed, just go get a gummy and an Xbox and enjoy Halo. Leave the rest of us alone on the roads. Now, let me tell you about Hillsdale College before I get out of here. If you go to ericforhillsdale.com, you can sign yourself up or a friend up for a great class at Hillsdale College for free. You get a certificate of completion when you're done. ericforhillsdale.com. It's a great opportunity for you to learn not just about Hillsdale College, but learn about a subject you're interested in, whether it's capitalism or the American Revolution or the Civil War, ancient Rome or Greece, literature like C.S. Lewis or Shakespeare. There's so much for you to learn from Hillsdale College, and all you do is go to ericforhillsdale.com, E-R-I-C-K, ericforhillsdale.com. You sign up with Hillsdale College today, and you take the class for free. You got 40 different ones to choose from. They're really all very good with some of the best faculty from Hillsdale. 30-minute episodes. Do it at your own pace. Certificate of completion when you're done. No charge to you at ericforhillsdale.com. Go sign up today.